Okay, great. So I'm gonna start um, the recording. And as everybody starts popping up, if you can introduce yourselves in the chat box, or if you're joining us through phone, you can go ahead and wait to be introduced when we get to the questions portion. Okay, so thank you, first of all of you for joining us. I hope that we will really be able to share and learn from each other today while discussing this really important topic of lactation support for incarcerated women. If I can remind you all to mute yourselves so we can minimize the background noise, that would be great. And yeah, don't forget to introduce yourself in the chat box if you can. So for those who do not know me, my name is Miriam Rodriguez, and I'm the Coalition Relations Coordinator for USBC, and I'll be facilitating this. Today's agenda is we're going to go over a lot. I will briefly go over the history and the interest that we received for this topic. We'll go over some questions that we have. We're really excited to hear from all of you, and we'll end with some closing remarks. So once again, welcome everyone for joining this call. We're really excited to be able to host this today. We have been receiving several questions from different states and coalitions wanting to know more about lactation support for incarcerated women and what other states have been doing in regards to this topic. We received several interested emails and resources from all of you, so we're really excited to hear from you all. This topic is increasingly important, and in this slide, I've included two articles that are that I thought would be interesting to share. We can add the links to the chat box if you want to know more about these topics. The first is the gender divide, tracking women's state prison growth, and so that article talks about the increase in women's in the women's population in state prisons, which just goes to show how important this topic is to start organizing around or to continue to work in for those states who are already working in this topic. The second one is breastfeeding in correctional settings, which is more of an overview on the topic. If anybody wanted to read more, I'm going to be adding these to our learning community that I have established for this group, and I can show you how to do that now. So if you go to the USB website, you can go into news and info, learning communities, and we will be all the way at the bottom. We're the newest learning community. If you click on that, it'll take you right to the forum where I've included the different resources that you all sent and the emails and sharing we can do on this forum as well.
I'm unable to access this for some reason.
Access the learning community?
Yes. Even if I'm looking at the global goto.com, gotomeeting.com, nothing's coming up. I may be doing something incorrect. But continue, I'm sorry.
Kenny, could you refresh your screen maybe? You should be able to see something. So refresh or, sign out and rejoin again. That might, is everybody else able to see the screen? I can.
I'm able to see it. I can.
Okay, sorry. All right, we'll continue. I'll try and figure it out.
Okay, great. Let us know if you run into any other troubles.
Okay.
Okay, so let's continue. Okay, and so the first question, let's jump right in, is what is your coalition, organization, or state doing around this topic? And this includes any general knowledge you all might have, any local initiatives or statewide initiatives that you're all participating in. And I know there's a
Do you
lot
want us? Do you want us to do it by phone or by chat?
by phone. So if you wanted to go first, that would be fine.
Okay, this is Brenda Bandy, and I guess I'll get started because I'm also at the top of the attendee list, if we wanted to do it that way. This is Brenda from Kansas, and I can tell you what we're doing is learning. I am learning a lot about this because we're not doing anything. So I look forward to learning right along with you. I did recently meet a woman in one of our large metropolitan cities who has been working with our one and only women's state prison around this topic. So I've just been learning and meeting people.
Okay.
Hi, this is Arissa Palmer from Breastfeed LA. I'm happy to go now. So we are also learning very much from what other people are doing. We recently passed AB 2507, which Robbie can talk about. And so there's been a lot of talk across the state about what we're going to do, which is basically a pump and pickup program for the jails. And then locally, we've been having a lot of conversation because the jails reached out to us to ask for lactation support, but there was no funding for it. And so we were trying to figure out what is it that we could do, who's already going into the jails, or is there an opportunity to train folks to provide that lactation support for our community health workers that are locally going into the jail. Some of them most recently have a little bit of lactation training, but several of them who are going in there are providing support to breastfeeding women are not trained in lactation, so making sure that those folks are trained. And then we've also heard anecdotally locally that there's been situations where they're only holding the milk for a week because there's no place to store it in the freezer to hold it longer. And so we are very interested in learning from others who have already been doing this and have established programs, what's working for them, and what's been working, so that we can institute that here. And then also we're working statewide on a policy that we can offer the jails as like a model policy to use. But Robbie can go into more detail on that.
Can I?
Go ahead.
My name is Lisa. I'm working with the Marion County WIC program in Indianapolis, Indiana. I currently participate in lactation support at the Indiana Women's Prison. There is a prison pregnancy program called the Wee Ones Nursery. I've been doing this since 2015. We are probably, as far as I know, the only WIC program that actually provides lactation support inside the prison walls. And I think one distinction that I would like to say is that there's a difference between jail and prison. I think it has a lot to do with how they may view any policy regarding lactation support in terms of transporting expressed milk from mom to baby, and who is caring for the baby and so forth, and any liability in transporting that milk. But within the prison pregnancy program, we actually, I have a bilingual coworker who's also a CLS trained peer counselor. We go into the prison on a designated second Thursday of every month, where we provide breastfeeding education. We also have a WIC dietitian who comes in with us as well, and she does any certifications and so forth for the babies who are formula fed. But my coworker and I, peer counselors, we provide breastfeeding education, pump training for the nannies who are also inmates who qualify to participate in this program. We provide any nursing bras, pads, pump support, tubing, anything that will facilitate the mom and her breastfeeding experience. The babies are kept there with the mothers, and they do not commingle with the general population. And the mothers who qualify for the program are nonviolent offenders. They have to meet certain criteria to participate in the program, and also their release date has to be within 27 months of the delivery of the baby. We've had success for the past few years where we've had some exclusively breastfed babies for a year. So it's been a very successful program. We don't have lots of numbers because obviously we don't want lots of women incarcerated, but the ones who do participate have valuable experience that we've been able to translate into feasible support in that particular circumstance.
Wow, that sounds great. Can you tell me your first name again?
Lisa.
Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
This is Robbie with the California Breastfeeding Coalition.
Nice to meet you.
Well, we can learn a lot from you, Lisa. In what you said about differences between jails and prisons, that's something we're learning here too. In California, the prison state system has a policy. It's not the best. What happened in California is this last year, a legislator decided to take on some legislation that set up what Arissa said, like a pump and pickup program for our county jails. It requires the county jails to have a policy in place. Some of the language, it really focuses around some of its sensation of lactation and weaning rather than support. So we feel that if we can create a good template that will mitigate some of maybe harmful consequences or an outfall from this legislation, we can improve it. We're not sure if we need to go back and improve some of the language in the law. It's now in our penal code. So there are some positives in that jails do have to have a policy. So we're organizing right now at the state level with a core group of people that got involved with the legislation that includes one of the doctors from UC Davis and UC San Diego. They're doing a lot of research around drugs and drugs and breast milk, primarily marijuana, and other advocates throughout the state to kind of get organized, what's already out there, what are the resources so that we can create a really good template policy for the other county jails to adopt. Some of them already have some policy. Some of them are good. Some of them can be improved. So that's where we're at right now in California. And with certain incidences happening throughout the state. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of who other people that need education, and for us in the state, I think also the judges do, because they're sentencing. And I've heard things where judges say, oh, well, breastfeeding's a privilege. You should be lucky you got to do it this long, and incarcerating maybe somebody who may be able to serve their term at home rather than in jail. So other things like that.
Okay.
Hi, this is Tina from Sutter County WIC program in California, and I'm kind of listening in with Robbie.
Hi, this is Kay O'Keefe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm with the New Jersey Breastfeeding Coalition, and I second what was said by Brenda from Kansas, where I think we're in the learning mode. I've already tried to make some phone calls to really see where we are, at least within the state system, and immediately I was told that I would need to write a letter to get any information, and because of the Freedom of Information Act, it would have to be a letter, and then possibly they could respond to me. So I have a feeling I have a very steep ladder to climb to even get some general information. So we're definitely in the investigation, the assessment phase, the learning phase, and I'm just very interested to hear everything that, everyone else on the call says.
This is Betsy Danczak from Louisiana with the breastfeeding program, and we are also in very much the learning phase. This is very new for me, and so I appreciate you all sharing your knowledge and ideas. Thank you.
Hi, this is Lindsay from a local WIC agency in Portland, Maine. We're definitely still in a learning phase here. We did start piloting a program where we're going into our local county jail and enrolling pregnant women on WIC, doing breastfeeding education, and we have been able to provide a breast pump for one incarcerated mom who was going to be remaining in the jail for about 3 months after her baby was born, so we were able to provide her a pump during that time. We haven't had anybody else yet, so we're definitely still learning, and it's a process, but it's been really great so far to be able to help our incarcerated moms.
Hi, this is Lissa. Okay. I was going to say, this is Lissa from the New Mexico Breastfeeding Task Force, and I had to join the call a little late, but we have been doing a variety of things. I'm not sure if somebody else on the call has already mentioned the work going on in New Mexico. Is that the case?
No, they haven't.
I have not heard.
Okay, so the update on New Mexico is we have 2 inmates that we're supporting right now, one at our prison at the New Mexico Corrections Department, and then one at a local county jail. Both are there long term. And every day is a new day. It's constantly interesting, and every unique inmate has a unique circumstance. For example, the one that's in the prison location right now, she's a 3-hour commute from our main metropolitan center in Albuquerque, and so we're trying to find volunteers to go out once a week to pick up her frozen milk and then take it to a very remote area where her caregiver and her baby are. She's scheduled to be released in February, though, so we're thinking this is not going to be a forever project for the volunteers, but we were sort of working on coordinating that. We also are redrafting a bill that we introduced 2 years ago, and it'll be introduced this spring again to require correctional facilities to provide lactation support. We're working with the local law school clinic to support drafting a policy, much like a hospital policy, but for correctional facilities at one of our other county jails. And then the inmate that's at the county jail right now, she's pumping regularly, and they're scheduled to start tomorrow live breastfeeding visitation, which was a bit of an orchestration because they no longer allow live visitation for other types of visitation. So that's, I think, a quick update of what we've got going on here.
That's great. Now, I will say, this is Lisa again from the WIC program in Indianapolis, Indiana. What we're finding in terms of logistics with the prison pregnancy program is, should a mom, every time the offender delivers at the hospital, she is separated from her baby for a standard 24 to 48 hours while they do specific tests, because most of the women in the program have substance abuse issues. So they keep baby there until they assess what's going on, and then baby is, if all goes well, baby is reunited with mom. So our concern in that space in time number one is helping mom to maintain her milk supply and morale within those 48 hours of being separated from baby. So that's imperative. And then should baby not be able to reunite with mom immediately, we are incurring some difficulty in trying to figure out who would be able to transport any milk to the baby, to the caregiver, or wherever the baby is being cared for. And should mom express milk to send to that baby, the baby would not be allowed to join mom in the program later if the baby's health has gotten to the point optimally where she could be with mom in the program. So there's some liability issues where we were attempting to engage the milk bank here as part of, with a courier of some sort. We as WIC staff are not able to transport anything. So there are some logistics that are specific to the institution that I think are that's specific to the type of institution, as I spoke to before, jail versus prison, and also who is responsible for this lactation support within the prison itself. If it's a private organization, if it's within the prison, I think all of those issues matter. I've probably said quite a bit there to kind of sort through, but those are some of the issues that we're finding with transporting milk in a federal penitentiary, at least in Indiana, getting the warden to consider a space or a designated area to store milk or to keep the breast pump and so forth, for a person with a long sentence as opposed to a shorter sentence. All these things come up in consideration when developing policy.
So hi, this is Colette Green, and I just wanted to let you know what's going on in Philadelphia in this regard. So I'm with Maternity Care Coalition, and we were already in the jail, and this is a county women's jail, Riverside Correctional Facility. And so we were already in the jail providing services to pregnant women and women with young children for about 10 years. And mostly what we were doing was case management services, but also contact with caregivers and their children. And then we did parenting education and also a perinatal class where we talked about pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding support. We also provided doula services. So when a woman goes into labor, we get called and we are there during the labor and postpartum, and we encourage skin to skin and breastfeeding initiation. And so we've been doing this for a while, but just in the last 2 years, we received a small grant to start the lactation program, and this has been a collaboration with the jail. And they provided us space to have some breast pumps. So since then, we've been, the women are able to pump after they deliver, or also if they came into the jail while they were, when they were breastfeeding before coming in. They can go, but this was a long process. Nothing works very fast with the jail. So, it took a couple years to get it up and running. And then we need a lot of the to work with the jail because they send their medical staff to the unit where the lactation room is 3 times a day to use the hospital grade pumps. We also provide them with hand pumps and all of the other supplies. So we provide all of the supplies so that they can also pump from their cells. We give them like a cooler and ice pack so that then, it's good through the night. And then we have the freezer and everything is stored there. And the staff, who are also the doulas and also the case managers, they're the ones who also deliver the breast milk to the caregiver of the baby, whenever there's enough of a supply to be delivered. So this it's been a work in progress, but right now it's going, relatively well. But again, the key thing is we have to have support from the warden and support from the medical staff, and everybody needs to be on board because it does take a lot of coordinating.
Right, I agree. I'm curious to know, this facility, is it the one in Colette was in Philadelphia? You said that this is the prison or the jail?
Jail. It's a jail. It's a county jail.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Callie Woolery calling in from Coffee Creek Correctional Facility in Oregon. I am so sorry I'm late to the meeting.
Hi, Kelly.
Where was this program, the person who just spoke about?
This is Colette Green, and the program was in the Riverside Correctional Facility in Philadelphia.
Okay. Hi, I had a question about. Oh, sorry if I asked a question about the program.
Yeah.
Has there been issues about pumps and what types of pumps can be brought in, and concerns about, using parts of it for other things?
No, because we just, when we started the program, we got the grants for 2 pumps, and we ordered all of the supplies, and everything stays in the lactation room. So all of the supplies, we monitor the supplies are all there. And in terms of the manual pumps, and we order them, and it's just one type of pump that we've been getting. Was that the question?
Yeah, but they have access to an electric pump?
Yes, they do.
Okay. In Indiana, we also supply 2 hospital grade pumps and manual pumps, and then the single user like Hygia or pumps, and the moms who are breastfeeding are allowed to keep those with them in their cell.
Okay. Just to clarify, in Indiana, they can keep a manual pump with them in their cell, but they have access to hospital grade pumps. Is that correct?
And if only one mom needs that hospital grade pump, she can keep that in her cell as well. Anyone else who may come and need that pump has her own set of tubing and supplies for the pump. They can share the base of the pump, alternating pumping times or what have you, but they have their own kits.
Interesting.
Has anyone had experience with county jails? There was a concern here in California, just the privacy to pump, and they were in an open general area, and they were just giving her a cover, and that made her feel uncomfortable. Anything around that?
We have had that come up here at Coffee Creek in Oregon. It's very difficult to find private space in an institution that's short on offices and things like that. So, we do kind of explain that to the moms that if they, a lot of our moms are initially in a cell, so there's more privacy, but if they go to our minimum facility, it's all dorm setting. So security has tried to find an office space for them to use, but it's not always available. And so we just let them know ahead of time that, initially they'll be provided, the ability to cover themselves and maintain privacy that way. If someone does have a real issue with it, then we're working with security to try to find a place for them to have more privacy, but it's not something that we're immediately, initially providing. We just don't have a dedicated space that we can reserve for that.
In the Indiana Women's Prison, they are allowed to breastfeed in their cells. There are 2 adjacent nursery rooms where the nannies can sit with the babies while mom is on work detail or in class. And but moms can breastfeed there, but they are just not necessarily allowed to breastfeed in the common area of that dorm.
Hi, this is Krista Olson calling in from the Rural Hawaii Breastfeeding Coalition. And I'm not sure if we're done with updates, but I wanted to circle back to share a little bit about what's happening in Hawaii. And as you mentioned, we're from the Rural Coalition. We also have an urban-based state coalition. And I wanted to just highlight again the issue of transported milk. I mean, I think most of us are aware that more than half the moms in the country are held at least 100 miles away from where their families are. And so we're pleased to have a policy in Hawaii, but it does require families to pick up milk every week. And for For folks in our community, that's a $200 flight and a $70 Uber ride to get to the jail. So the reality is that most of our families see their family members who are incarcerated maybe once a year. So our efforts actually have really been focused on alternative sentencing, on delayed sentencing, and educating judges, district attorneys, public defenders about the role of breastfeeding and the importance of preserving that relationship. And that's where we have had some successes that have been really pleasing. You know, and we work a lot with early Head Start programs, with WIC programs, with the folks kind of in the field in our rural communities who have engagement with those families. And one of the things I wanted to share that we have found is very important in our communities and to the families that we work with is language. And so I just wanted to share that even in our call of using respectful language for the families we work with. Women who are incarcerated seems preferred for the families we work with than offender, and women with substance use issues seems to be preferred to substance dependency, to addiction. And so I, in respect for the families who have really informed our work, I like to share that as we start to change the work and really refer to them first as people, that has also, I think, rubbed off in our justice system. And so I want to say that that's kind of been one of the successes for us. And we're happy to have a policy in place. And it does provide for pumping in our one women's state prison. And again, it's just that for the percentage of families who live on the other 5 islands, we've had to find alternate ways of advocating for them.
That's a lot.
This is Shannon McKinney-Schubert with the Michigan Breastfeeding Network. And this has been amazing. Thank you all to those of you who've already shared. I see a lot of my favorite people in the world on this call right now, and it's nice to hear your voices. So with the Michigan Breastfeeding Network, we're kind of in the between phase of having done like a lot of our research gathering and now really getting to work on policy change. We also, just so you know, have published a web page on our website for you to see all the stuff that we've done. Not that it's above and beyond what you've done. A lot of you have already done more work than we have, but I just, in the spirit of like not reinventing the wheel, somebody mentioned looking for a sample policy. We gathered a couple sample policies, and that's one of the things that we share on our website. So it's mibreastfeeding.org/incarceration. And if you'd be interested in sharing anything, if you all like want a place to put some stuff, we'd be willing to post things on our site under the Join the Movement section for incarceration. We just so we did a lot of like kind of a listening tour around the state of Michigan and what's happening with our jails and our prisons, and specifically in partnership with our WIC agencies, because they're really the front lines of like supporting many of our moms who are doing like serving jail time like on the weekends, and some of the alternative prison sentencing models that we've seen around the state. So they've really helped a lot with like delivering milk and things like that. And so we've done a lot of listening with them. And then also, I mean, a lot of you we've met with and talked with, gathering what's happening best practices wise around the country. And we put together a preliminary system changers guide that just advocates for 7 changes in the way that we're currently doing our the prison system in Michigan. We have 1 prison and then county level jails. So we have that, and then we have, like I said, a few resources that we've put together, but we're really now just, that's sort of our baseline, kind of our internal. We've published it also that it's accessible, but that's really just how we're organizing ourselves internally to begin doing broader policy advocacy on these issues. And so we have one mom specifically right now who is incarcerated. We have a stand your ground law, but she was incarcerated for demonstrating a weapon during an altercation with a neighbor, and gave birth in the prison, and then now is working on getting milk to her son. And so we've had a lot of, she also happens to be an environmental rights activist, and so she was very tapped into like the activism community in Detroit. And so there's a coalition supporting her, and we've joined that coalition and are doing a lot of work to expand policy in Michigan for the women's prison that's located in Ann Arbor, maybe with the eventual goal of deferred sentencing for pregnant and breastfeeding women, but that's clearly down the road. So that's where we are.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I think just based on time, we can move on to the next question.
I'm sorry, this is Ruth Johnson. I'm at the ACLU of Southern California, and obviously in California, I'm in transit, so I'm just joining by phone. But I'm here with my colleague at DC Fruitwala, and it is wonderful to hear all of the things happening throughout the country. I work with Ravi and Arissa, the California Breastfeeding Coalition, and also Breastfeed LA, and I just wanted to add a couple of resources for folks that are kind of starting the exploratory learning phase of this process. We have a report called Reproductive Health Behind Bars in California that outlines kind of reproductive health and justice for the incarcerated population in jail, kind of soup to nuts, and it includes lactation accommodation. And we also have an accompanying toolkit that is basically a kind of a checklist of different policy pieces that various policies should include for pregnant and postpartum folks and other reproductive health needs. And I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's a useful kind of aggregate of a lot of the position papers that actually already exist, and policies that exist from different organizations like the National Center for Correctional Health Care, for example, has policies on things like lactation and other issues for this population. And so there's actually a lot of really good kind of authority to point to, especially if you're kind of looking to start this process. And then also I know that a lot of people on this call are likely already tapped into the pregnancy and prison convening and the pregnancy and prison study, but Carolyn Suffren is a physician who used to work in the San Francisco jails and has developed a really strong expertise around these issues. And so I think if those connections haven't been made, I would be very happy to make sure that they're stronger. But thank you everybody for sharing, and thanks for letting me dive in.
Great. Thank you for that. This is Kinkini. I wanted to add to that. It's just so helpful to hear all the different aspects and the different advantages that you all bring from the county, state to federal, and hearing about what's happening. Like there are just different pieces. It's so complex and nuanced, and getting different pieces of the puzzle. The report, the gender gap report that Miriam spoke about, and the link that we have to it actually has a state at the end of the report. It also has the states that have seen the largest increases in women incarceration, and that might be a way for the states who are just exploring how urgent is this in our state, even though it doesn't. The report gives the general population of women and not pregnant or postpartum, but one can assume that state policies that that lead to high numbers of women in incarceration will also include subsequently high number of our population too. As you think about how to get started, there might be organizations within your states, just like in Hawaii and in New Mexico and California and other states that are working on prison reform, especially among this population. So those might be good places to get to connect with stakeholders, and if there are prison reforms happening, bring this breastfeeding and other women's health issue on their radar as well. So wanted to add that. And for anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet first, so as you answer the second question, feel free to add anything about the first if you've not had a chance to speak yet.
Thank you, Kinkini. And with that, the second question is, what would you like to see be done, and what do you think is missing? This can be anything from more states being involved, national initiatives, or any big picture ideas that you all might have.
Hi, this is Lissa from New Mexico. What I would like to see done is definitely some more national resources, but specifically related to. We have some very specific issues here, but one of them is HIPAA has been an issue for us as we try to communicate from hospitals back to correctional facilities and then also out to different organizations, whether it be WIC or our Breastfeeding Coalition or other volunteers. So just some legal guidance on how to navigate privacy rights with regard to medical information. And then the second one is just more guidance and tips on milk delivery and how to coordinate that. I heard from some of the people that spoke at the last question that they had some support or they've been able to do that successfully. So we would love to hear about that more in New Mexico. And then finally, we are working on trying to develop a training for correctional officers because, of course, just like courts, just like everything else, most of these officers have never even seen a pump or know how breastfeeding works. And so I just wanted to let you know that New Mexico is interested in that. We are working on that. So if you have any resources to send to us, hopefully in a year or so, we will have something available.
This is Arissa from Breastfeed LA. For us, I think it would be really helpful to have a coordinated space where all of these resources are shared. So I don't know if that's something that USBC could do possibly as a portion of the website as like a place to store all of these resources. So as we're going through and trying to figure out what we want to do, we can look through what everyone else has in one place would be very helpful.
Yeah, so just to answer your question, Arissa, we will be having that space available for you all. I showed you, I can show it again. So we have on the USBC website a lactation support for incarcerated learning community. And so we will be able to post different resources here, articles, anything that you all might want to share. There's also the listserv that you all should be on. To share and have different conversations on any issues that might arise as well. So that is there for you.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I have one question. This is Kay O'Keefe calling. I'm sorry, speaking in New Jersey. And one comment that was made to me in the last week as I've been calling people is that even the who are the correctional facility employees, the correction officers often themselves are not even able to pump at work. And I wondered if anyone across the nation has experienced that or has any feedback on that.
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
This is Nurse
This is Toy from California. I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Callie Woolery, nurse manager at Coffee Creek in Oregon. We have all sorts of staff throughout our department, whether it's correctional counselors, officers, nurses, who pump while they're at work. I believe that as an employer, we're obligated to provide a space to them. And so we've provided many different options for them, depending on where their workplace is located, what's convenient. We've made that accommodation as an employer. And then obviously we, have our program, with our inmate moms participating. So it's not been a problem here. Finding the places that and getting those set up initially, may have been a bit of a challenge, but we've been able to accommodate anyone who's wanted to.
Toy.
Hi, this is Toy Hightower from California. I think one of the problems has been, I know, here in Los Angeles, because I will be working in the women's jail. I know the conversation has been space is a major problem for anybody who needs to breastfeed, for the guards as well as the inmates. But I know that one of the one of the thoughts that I've had is I have witnessed how not nice the guards can be to inmates. So I don't even know if that would be something that they would be willing to share as far as space in a lactation room. The other issue is when I have been in the prison, in the jail, I know one of the issues that I've seen is that the inmates aren't left alone. So the guard is always present.
I know in the Indiana Women's Prison, there was more, there tend to be female guards in the Wee Ones nursery area, and some of them are sympathetic, not to a fault where it jeopardizes whatever goals they have in terms of it being a penal institution, but they are usually more sympathetic in terms of accommodating whatever it is, whether it's feeding positions or whatever. They're willing to listen to what is going on with the women who are in this program. It doesn't mean that they've softened to any sort of crime that may have been committed or what have you, but they're more open to discussion, I think, if the approach has not been coming from a male institution, and realizing that women have different needs. And so I think they're more open to having a discussion about the possibilities of, working out those logistics as far as where a woman can pump, or if a guard if she's breastfeeding, would be able to express in the same area. That's just what I found in conversation.
Thank you for that. I want to invite people who haven't spoken yet to go ahead and feel free to share. Maybe if your state or your coalition is not as active as you would like it to be, what do you think you need to make that happen, or what are some ideas that can make an organization more active in this topic?
Hi, this is Tina from California, and I know quite often there are correctional conferences, and just maybe submitting an abstract or a topic session on something like this, either the state correctional conferences or maybe a national correctional conference, to explain the policies, to have a discussion about it, to present some case studies, and maybe the legal issues that have occurred because of the lawsuits and all that. And I know there's actually one going on, I think right now it's the correctional conference down in Las Vegas, but they're held throughout the year, and submitting again just a workshop on something like that.
That's a great idea.
Hi, this is Katie from California. I'm a volunteer with Breastfeed LA, and I'm curious, for those of you who have programs, if you've found the need to not only connect with organizations who are working on prison reform, but also just basic legal support. There's all this data that shows, for instance, that like a large percentage of people who are in jail are there because they can't post bail. And so in thinking about those sorts of issues, I'm just curious if anyone's been able to connect with other legal organizations or some of these bail reform organizations as well.
Well, I definitely, this is Colette from Philadelphia again. I definitely think that as we look into this issue, that really what's needed is more advocacy, because, the jail issues used to be primarily around men, but as the women's population is increasing, this is coming more to light, but a lot of people are not aware, or maybe haven't paid attention to the fact that there's a lot of consequences to families and to So I think a lot more advocacy, and also, you know, in the process of some communication with like the DA's office about trying to think of some diversion programs for pregnant women and women with young children, because again, the issue of cash bail, often the women don't have the means to pay their bail, so they end up in prison separated from their families, or also separated from their newborns, when then they go to trial, you know, 6 months later and they're not guilty. So really it becomes really about the cash bail and not being able to afford it. So diversion programs, I think, are really important when we're talking about this issue.
This is Lissa from New Mexico, and we've absolutely worked with other groups that are not necessarily breastfeeding focused. Related to diversion programs, we started conversations with our local municipal courts regarding specialty courts that would specifically be focused on incarcerated or female offenders who are either pregnant or lactating or have children under a certain age. But we've also worked with our local ACLU. We were able to coordinate with some local defense attorneys with regard to the court case that we, you know, helped with getting, you know, before our district court. We worked with the Southwest Women's Law Center. There's a local advocacy group called Wings for Life International that provides support to returning citizens and their families. And then a couple other local groups, Young Women United and the WIC, the local WIC association here in New Mexico.
Wow. Okay. Is there anybody else who hasn't shared who maybe wants to take this time?
This is Mary from Minnesota, and I'm just listening in while I'm getting ready for a meeting that I'm chairing in 5 minutes. I know that in Minnesota, the jails, there's mixed practices. I know Hennepin and Ramsey County jails say that they will support a woman who's breastfeeding, and I also know of a jail that the public health offered to bring over a refrigerator. They offered to pick up the milk, to provide a breast pump. The foster mom was willing to accept the breast milk, and the jail refused and made her pump and dump. So I put them in contact with some of the more supportive organizations. And right now, the Minnesota Breastfeeding Coalition does not have any active group working on this. And as far as my schedule, it's up beyond right now. So it's an important issue, and I'm hoping that we can do something in the future. But I know if somebody wants to check out Hennepin County or Ramsey County, our two largest counties in Minnesota for population, they could probably get some information there. I'm going to pop off. I've got a call that I'm chairing. Bye.
Thanks, Mary.
This is Robbie. This is Brenda in Kansas. Are we still taking requests for help?
Request for. Go ahead, Brenda.
This is Robbie. Okay. Yes, this is Brenda in Kansas, and I just have a request from a state who has not done anything yet in this area, and am trying to learn. I would like to know more about the systems. Where can we make the biggest effect, the biggest impact, given the limited time and resources that we have? And I need to have a better understanding of the complexity of this issue in terms of where would one get started. So like I said, you can have the biggest impact, because we're not going to be able to work on a case-by-case basis, even a county-by-county basis. I'm more interested in policy level work, and at what level can we make policy that's going to impact the most number of prisons or jails in our state, and where would one even get started? And then I need to have the advocacy tool to take to those people in positions to change policy to explain why this is an important issue. And I think the Michigan Systems Changers Guide is the tool that I need, but I don't know who to even start talking to make policy level changes.
Thanks, Brenda. I think we'll be, you know, this is so important what we're hearing from other states. we'll keep our learning community updated with all of the suggestions and things that have come in today. But even as I'm listening to everyone, I think one of the things we'll be working towards is kind of looking at ACLU, other organizations that are working on prison reforms, and the state examples. Hawaii is such an excellent example again of progressive, to do a webinar maybe, which will be in the early next year, that will at least collate what's happening and kind of distill some of the lessons that are being learned along the way. So we'll put that on our radar to
That's
do.
a great idea.
Robbie,
I have
you
a
were saying?
question. Yeah, I just have a question, and it may not be able to be answered today, but just to put it out, if others have a requirement for drug testing or screening as a condition for being able to be in a lactation or pump program in the jails or prison, because that's something that's coming up here.
Thank you. Got it, Robin.
Oregon does not require that in our prison. We do have a clause in our contract with the moms that if they end up going to disciplinary housing and have a hearing and are found guilty of some sort of contraband issue or otherwise, it could be even, they're in trouble for, an assault or something of that sort, that we may restrict their participation. Obviously, we want this to be a program that is well respected, that people take seriously, and so we're not doing drug testing, but obviously if security does that and the person is found guilty of being involved in something like that, then we would be looking at potentially restricting their participation in the program.
In New Mexico, it's been a little bit all over the map on this. That was a contentious issue with regard to the lawsuit that we had. And in fact, we had medical doctors come and testify that a mom on opioid replacements, physician prescribed opioids, was actually prescribed to breastfeed, that breastfeeding was the recommended treatment. So even if her baby was born with NAS, neonatal abstinence syndrome, that she should be breastfeeding even though she is still receiving that regular amount of physician prescribed amount of opioids. We also have at Santa Fe County Jail, they only allow mothers that are on opioid replacements to breastfeed and lactate. Those that are not eligible to be in the program, which has created all sorts of craziness. That's not a recommended model for the country, but know that that's one take. Our county jail in Bernalillo County, on the other hand, has said they don't want a drug test. They don't want to get involved in it. So they've required the community partners that are medical doctors to do their drug testing periodically when they come for postnatal visits. And then they did use drug testing in the court case in our prison system, and they said that her testing positive for illicit substances was a reason to pull her from the program. So like I said, we've got that all across the map in New Mexico.
Thank you.
This is Leah from Breastfeeding Hawaii, and I can just say from the experience that I've had working in one of our hospitals on Oahu, number one, I know somebody mentioned earlier that their moms and babies are separated for 24 to 48 hours, and we do not separate our moms and babies at all, and they're allowed to breastfeed while in our hospital. And they do always have somebody posted in their room that basically sits on a couch at the end of the room. We generally give them one of our biggest rooms, so they're with their babies the entire time. We don't do routine drug testing on them, and it's not, that basically would be a provider call, but in general it's not done because they're often times, coming from being in our correctional facility, coming in to deliver at our hospital. So I think the provider assumption is that they currently aren't using substances at that time, and we all in our hospital are aware that if they are on methadone or some other opioid substance, that of course they would continue to breastfeed, and then we set them up with their pump while calling the facility to ensure that the facility then has their pump ready. But just saying that like we don't do routine drug screening, and that it's not something written into the policy for our state correctional facility related to them pumping and providing milk to their babies. And we don't do routine separations. I can't speak for all hospitals, but I can say that that's not a policy statewide to do so. So there's, I'm sure, a variety of experiences.
Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. The last question, really quickly, is what is the energy and interest in meeting again? Did you guys think maybe we could do monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, or did you just want to share resources on the learning community for now, or what is kind of the vision from here on out?
I think it would be
Mexico,
great.
we're
We're very interested. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, in New Mexico, we absolutely want to continue to collaborate. So if it's not provided through USBC, I'll probably be trying to hunt down each one of you and calling you and stalking you. So definitely, if you could continue to support this, I would appreciate it.
This is Lisa from Indiana. I'm interested in the same, communicating about what works. I mean, what's clear is that it's not uniform. Each state, population, everything varies. So it would be great to have some sort of, summit or to meet to not necessarily provide a template for each facility or each situation, but just to at least see what's possible.
This is Betsy in Louisiana. I'd be very interested in quarterly meetings just to continue to learn and find out what kind of progress we can make in Louisiana.
This is Krista from Hawaii, and I'd also be interested in quarterly calls. And I wanted to just say that I really loved the suggestion about looking at how our breastfeeding community can reach out to the criminal justice community. And, I quick Googled, there's lots of abstracts due, for example. And I know most of us are not funded to go around and present everywhere, but I would love to collaborate and share research and references and resources if somebody is in a position to take on maybe a presentation or even an article for one of the journals that I feel like when we do that cross-sectoral work and reach into the criminal justice world and the prison guard world, we really are finding allies that we didn't necessarily know were out there. So I just wanted to say that I'd be happy to contribute in whatever way I can. Leah and I are probably not in a position to travel to conferences so much in the continental US, but I liked that idea a lot. So if I can help in some way. And I'll also attest that Lisa from New Mexico will find you and track you down. So better to just set up a call.
This is Tricia Cassie in Vermont, and I joined the meeting a little bit late today, but I really appreciate the sharing. I'm very interested in seeing the resources. I work for the Department of Health WIC program, so I'm not directly involved in this work yet, but I am interested in learning more and seeing what I can bring to my state and trying to affect some policy at the state level.
This is
and I'd be interested in
Kinkini.
quarterly meetings. Thank you.
Great. So we'll keep the learning community going. We'll update and share. And it looks to me like with everybody meeting out, maybe monthly might be, but we'll do it on an as needed basis, probably set a quarterly meeting schedule that is standing. And then if something is bubbling and coming along and we need to have another meeting, we can always do a scheduler and send them out. But how I think that we at USBC are learning along with you. So part of our job will be to see if we can organize a webinar and get, harness some of this to see how states, coalitions can, who are a little ahead can share, and the ones who want to get started also have some, levers for how to get started and what's the most, probably high leverage places that might help. So thank you so much. Miriam?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Oh, sure.
Closing thoughts, go ahead, Miriam.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. The last just few slides is our lactation support learning community, which you should all have the link to, and our listserv email as well. And finally, thank you so much. We're all stronger when we're together. So I really look forward to meeting with all of you today again, whether it be quarterly or monthly, or look towards receiving an email from me with notes and the recording. And we'll stay in contact and continue to share any resources you might find. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.